Do you recognize this track that you're hearing? If so, then you've probably played the game Half-Life 2. I've heard the track go by many names when people discuss it online. Some people online simply call the song Radio because you find it emitting from a radio in an old destroyed building. Most people, however, call the song Distorted Trumpets, and this name has a very interesting origin. Like most other games, Half-Life 2 uses samples from online sound libraries. Notably, this track includes samples from a UK-based sound library called Zero G, more specifically their album Cuckoo Land: A Ghost in the Machine. Even the reviews for the album are full of people talking about how it was featured in Half-Life 2. You see, Distorted Trumpets is actually the name of the sample that you hear at the beginning of the Half-Life 2 track. And while I find the song very cool and disturbing, I'd like to instead focus your attention to the second part of that Half-Life 2 track. Pretty freaky, huh? This is another sample off of Ghost in the Machine, titled Is That the Door? And while, as far as I know, Distorted Trumpets is kind of just a Half-Life 2 thing, I was disturbed to find out just how many games Is That the Door snuck its way into. And even more disturbingly, how many of them I own. Some of these are like my favorite games. I'm also going to give an honorable mention to a game called Vanishing Point for the PlayStation. I've never played it, but just listen to how they sampled the song, it's nuts. Moving on from that, I'd like to discuss one of my favorite games, and the best thing to ever come out of Finland, Max Payne. Max Payne is a game released in 2001 for the PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. It's an absolutely brilliant game with the perfect blend of exciting gameplay, shitty voice acting.
So when are you coming to work for me, Detective Payne?
You'd make me work undercover in some hellhole. Sorry, Alex. Michelle and the baby come first. See? My last smoke. It's bad for the baby.
That's you, Max. A regular Boy Scout.
See, Alex.
Still on for poker Thursday night, right?
Like taking candy from a baby.
And a story filled with so many twists and turns you almost forget that the game starts at the end of the game. I played through the Max Payne franchise for the first time a few years ago and I was immediately hooked. I soon after purchased and played the rest of developer Remedy's games, such as Alan Wake and Control. What I think really elevates these games more than anything is the writing and storytelling done by industry veteran Sam Lake. He's also the guy that does the face for Max Payne. He just always does this stupid fucking face. One thing that really sets Max Payne apart from other third-person shooters is the bullet time mechanic. Max has the ability to slow down time and dive through the air like he's in an action movie. It can definitely feel a bit clumsy at times, but it really makes for a cinematic experience. The other thing that makes the game feel like a cinematic experience is the story, and it starts pretty dark. Max arrives home one day to find that a group of junkies hopped up on a drug called Valkyr have broken into his home. Even worse, his wife and newly born daughter are upstairs. Unfortunately, things end very poorly for our titular character Max. In what is by far one of the most disturbing moments I've ever witnessed in gaming, gunshots, cries, and screams ring out from the baby's room, and the next scene is quite grisly.
No, please, God, no. No, God, no, please, Michelle. Oh, baby.
In an instant, Max loses both his wife and his newly born child. It's incredibly dark and really took me by surprise when I first started playing Max Payne. The rest of the game follows Max trying to hunt down and find the people responsible for the attack on his house. I won't spoil anything, but the game takes a lot of unexpected turns. Throughout the game, you'll experience many of these so-called nightmare sequences, where Max will have to relive what happened to him in a dark and twisted version of his home. A baby's crying can be heard constantly as you try to navigate this labyrinth of a house. There's also this part where you have to do some platforming on a little trail of blood. It's like the worst part in any game. Like, you will fail so many times, it sucks. For such a miserable part of the game, you'd think there'd be an equally miserable track to go along with it, and you'd be right. Outside of the baby crying, this track, simply called Max's Nightmare, plays, and if you listen to a key part of it, you can hear a certain sample. Although it's been a while since Max Payne's last video game entry, Remedy has already begun working on a Max Payne 1 and 2 remake. Only time will tell if the remake also includes Max's Nightmare and possibly the Is That the Door sample once again. Speaking of which, I'd like to talk about a classic game that recently got remade and also features Is That the Door.
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else?
To say that I love Silent Hill 2 and its soundtrack would be quite the gross understatement. In fact, almost every background song that you've heard in this video has been taken from Silent Hill 2, including the one that you're listening to right now. I think what I love most about Silent Hill 2's narrative is how a lot of things aren't set in stone. Most of Silent Hill 2's story is shown rather than told, and there are so many theories and mysteries surrounding the game that even 20 years after its release, we're still discussing them online. With all of that being said, I'm not here to discuss the Silent Hill 2 story. Number one, because the story's been talked about to death online and anything that I could say has probably been said 10 times over. And number two, I'd feel awful if I spoiled the game for anyone that hasn't played it. If you haven't played Silent Hill 2, I highly recommend you either play the original or play the new remake that just came out. And no, you don't have to play Silent Hill 1 first. Silent Hill 2 is kind of its own separate thing. Besides one of the best narratives in any video game, it also features a fantastic soundtrack that I actually own a physical copy of. Twice. I own two of them, because I like it that much. Now, you'd assume that I'd go on to tell you about how the soundtrack features Is That the Door, and while yes, that is correct, and I'll get to that, what most people don't realize is that you actually hear the sample as soon as you start the game. That's right, the first sound effect that you hear as soon as you start Silent Hill 2 for the first time is That the Door? Unfortunately, the sound effect was cut from the remake, so, don't buy the remake, it sucks, it's a 0 out of 10, just a waste of time, really. Jokes aside, both Silent Hill 2 and its remake include a song that samples Is That the Door? I'm not going to discuss where this song plays in the original Silent Hill, because it's a major spoiler for that game, but in the remake it was used perfectly for the segment where James has to use the great knife to clear out this giant wall of moving, grotesque mannequins. I'm really happy to see all the attention that Silent Hill is getting recently, especially since the franchise was sat dormant for just about 10 years. And with the Silent Hill 2 movie and multiple unreleased games supposedly just around the corner, I think 2025 is shaping up to be a really good year for Silent Hill fans. Now, even though there are a lot of exciting things on the horizon for Silent Hill, Max Payne, and even Half-Life if you believe the newest batch of Half-Life 3 leaks, the next video game franchise that I'd like to talk about does not have a very bright future.
Video games like Postal.
Going Postal.
Going Postal. New video game. It's called Postal.
I'll be the first person to admit it. The original Postal is really not that disturbing. Look, man, I promise I'm a fan of Postal, more specifically Postal 2. One of my older uploads on this channel is actually a video of me messing around in Postal 2 with one of my friends.
So that's what that feels like. I feel like.
Maybe it's because I discovered Postal 2 first, or I don't know, maybe I'm just desensitized to video game violence, but I just cannot take the original Postal seriously. Maybe it's the goofy sound effects or the outdated art style. And look, not to dogpile the game, but it's really just not that fun either. I own Postal Redux, and look, I've tried to play through the game multiple times, but I don't know, I just don't find it enjoyable. But if I was going to give the original Postal any sort of credit, it would have to be for its soundtrack. Which I also own, because of course I do. I even got it signed by the lead devs. Mike J drew a penis on it, which is awesome. There's a video by a guy named Buff Wizard, and he goes over what makes Postal just so creepy and dark, and I highly recommend you watch that video, because something's just not right with me. I don't know, I don't feel the same way. At least I don't after actually playing the game. Before I played it, I would just listen to other YouTubers talk about it, and I was like, yeah, wow, that game sure does sound dark, but after playing it, there's nothing really to write home about. Except for the soundtrack, and in particular, one song. A song called Central Park. The team behind Postal, Running with Scissors, is currently working on a new documentary called Going Postal, The Legend Foretold. I'm excited to see the documentary when it comes out, and I'm curious to hear about all the stories relating to the game and its countless controversies. I think that's just about everything I wanted to talk about in this video. This is still kind of new to me, talking to the microphone like this, doing videos in this kind of format, so a like and subscribe is appreciated.